Hello, this is Alan Shipnuck back for another fire drill. I am delighted to be joined by my frequent wingman, Michael Bamberger. This is a throwback to about 2015 when Michael and I first started podcasting together. We were not quite early adapters, but there weren't a lot of folks doing podcasts back then. It's not the crowded landscape it has become in the golf space. So this is fun. We should tip our cap to our departed colleague, Ryan French, who was part of these Sunday night fire drills for a long time. Ryan's left the collective to pursue some other opportunities, which we're all rooting for him. We all love Ryan. Great human being, fun colleague. We'll miss his random digressions about players none of us have ever heard of. He definitely added an institutional knowledge to these conversations that is hard to replicate. Michael, you wanna send a oral bouquet of flowers to Ryan here?
Yes, very, very much so. Ryan's become a good friend in a short amount of time. He absolutely has a heart of gold. He absolutely roots for the underclass, the people that he covers at his Monday Q info Twitter feed. Like my friend Mike Donald, the former PGA Tour player, he has a natural reporting ability. He has an immense curiosity. He wants to know what's going on. He reduces things to a very basic level, and he's a great friend and a great colleague. And maybe we'll still have him back on this podcast from time to time because I know how much he enjoyed it, and we both know, Alan, how much he added to it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as I told Ryan a bunch of times, the door's always open. There's always a microphone available if he wants to jump back on this pod. We'll see how it all shakes out. It's definitely a transitional time for all of us. But anyway, just a tip of cap to Ryan because we miss that guy. So,
well, speaking of other colleagues, our colleague Jeff Ogilvy, with whom Alan and I have done a long series of Need a Fourth podcasts, played in the Puerto Rico tournament this week, and I think he T11'd. I know he played very well.
Yeah, it's so nice to see Jeff back between the ropes, and I can sense just in our conversations he's getting some of that competitive fire back. And he kind of took a couple of years of where he didn't play much competitive golf. He moved his family to Australia, and they went through their own big transition, and golf became kind of secondary. But that kind of talent, that kind of imagination, that love for the game, that never goes away. So if you can just get tournament sharp, it'll be really fun to see if Jeff can get on a little run here. And now people may be wondering, are you in a NASA, headquarters? What's going on back there? You're actually in the press room at Bay Hill. Tell us about the scene there, Michael.
I'm only 90 miles from Cape Canaveral, so you're not too far off. I have a neat memento from today's tournament. Hey, Luis, how are you? This is I've been amazed over the years to watch like Phil. Phil will take the cruddiest little nib of a tee and use it on a par 3. This is the tee that Max Homa used and discarded after one-time use on a par 3 here in the Bay Hill course. It is one of the most elegant tees I've ever seen. It's got a sturdy stem, good point, very cuppy. And so anyway, yes, I'm here at the Bay Hill tournament. I'm here in the press tent. The winner is being interviewed. He's wearing his red sweater. And it was a wild tournament here, and kind of a great reminder, really, of what I won't call it an ordinary PGA Tour event, but Arnold Palmer Invitational, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, was never like an elite event. It was just Arnie's event. Now, of course, it'll have, quote, elevated status, but I was only here a couple of days. But from what I was here, it was just like a lot of people having a good time, great weather, great field, flat, easy walking golf course, and an exciting tournament. Kind of just what the PGA Tour is all about.
Yeah, I mean, Tiger's knack for winning that tournament and the rapport he always had with Arnie certainly elevated it. I would say pre and post Tiger, it lost some luster, and clearly with Mr. Palmer no longer there to serve as master of ceremonies, it's been lacking. But the field this year was immense because of the elevated / designated status, and it was fun. I mean, a lot of star power on the leaderboard. John Rahm, they were going to just give him the trophy on Thursday after he shot an incredible first round, but he kind of lost his mind out there. I mean, I've come to like Bay Hill. The course itself doesn't do much for me, but it's basically like the second U.S. Open of the year, or it's the first one. It's like a precursor because they set it up so challenging with brick hard greens and long rough and skinny fairways. It seems like they always have a lot of front flags on Sunday. You got to hit over the water, but the green is as hard as a rock, and the ball just skips to the back bunker or into the rough, and then you've got these crazy up and downs or two putts, and it's really a war of attrition. And Max Homa, who's been one of the 2 or 3 hottest players in the world, he went backwards today in a big way. Rahm was never seen again after Thursday. Like, this course gets in the head of some really great players, and he, obviously you were out there watching Jordan Spieth. I mean, 14 through 17, he missed 4 putts in a row that were quite short, and that was really what kept him out of the winner's circle. What are your impressions of Jordan and just this war of attrition out there?
It really is like a U.S. Open course because the rough is so penal and the fairways are so firm and fast. I've been coming here for a lot of years. I never saw so many guys play irons off of par 4 tees or hybrids off the par 5s that I did this week because they're so afraid of driving it through the fairway and into the rough. And some of those rough lies can be really gnarly, almost chip out, pitch out. Definitely not go for it, especially with all the lakes they have in this golf course. So it was neat. It was neat to see, and I believe that applause is for Ryan French. It's a short golf course, even though it might be 7,400 yards on the card, but as firm as they have it, and as long as the ball runs with these hooded irons. So it does sort of play almost like a traditional U.S. Open course, and it was sort of a war of attrition. Spieth should have won this thing by 3 shots. He also missed a putt on 12. That was 3.5 feet. He putted very poorly, no matter what he says.
He has those stretches where he can't. He seems like he's more likely to make a 20-footer than he is a 6-footer. Like I think it's his overall jumpiness where he gets mental. He doesn't know whether to look at the hole or look at the ball. And he's a little bit like Mickelson, who sometimes, and like Fred Couples before him, where these immense talents, but sometimes it just feels like they lose their feel for the short putts. And it's part of what's stressful. I mean, like, he was chipping in, he was hitting some great iron shots, but if he was just like a cat on a hot tin roof out there on the greens, and it's like no hole is ever over with Jordan. We know that, both good and bad. And it was a little dispiriting because I thought that tee to green, he played really well. And it seems like his game is in good working order. Now that we're in, Bay Hill to me is kind of like the run up. We've already been in Florida for a while, but somehow Bay Hill is like, now it's a sprint to Augusta. And so I guess I'm encouraged by the way that Jordan hit the ball and navigated the course and seemed like he kept his cool until the back nine on Sunday. Then he went completely mental. And so I don't know what to make of it. What were your impressions of his just how he handled it emotionally, the whole thing?
And by the way, speaking of major winners, Rory McIlroy, Cantley hasn't won a major, but he's right there. Scheffler, Hatton hasn't, but he's right there. I mean, Jason Day, Hovland, not a major winner. Fitzpatrick. I mean, it really is a classic case of a good hard golf course with the cream rising to the top, but weirdness ensuing too, which is the ultimate beauty of 72 hole stroke play golf with a big field. Period. Jordan does not look. I love Jordan. You love Jordan. He does not look ready for prime time to me. He looks really unsure with the driver. He pitches the ball like an absolute demon. I mean, he pitches it beautifully, and if he lag putts beautifully, some of them go in the hole. And then you know what he's going to do from 4 feet. So how are you going to play Augusta National under those conditions? And how are you going to play Oak Hill for the PGA Championship under those conditions? But, and this has been the case for a while now, he is making incremental improvements. And he's not the player he was 5 years ago, which is weird. But he's better than the player he was 3 years ago. That's for sure.
It's funny how we talk about Jordan, like, we all seize on the moral victories and the little kernels of good news. Oh, he pitched it great this week. The guy's already a Hall of Famer. He had one of the greatest seasons in golf history. But there's that fragility there that makes him so compelling. And to be a fan of Spieth, and I think we're all a fan of Spieth on some level, it's maddening. And I mean, it's certainly the game's way more interesting when he's playing well, but it's also he can give you an ulcer. So that's the fun of following Jordan.
What was it like for you watching at home? Did you find yourself rooting? I know you root for the story. We root for the story, but who were you actually rooting for?
Oh, Jordan, absolutely, because he is. I mean, he's the best story. Like if Jordan could go on another run and get back to close to where he was, I mean, he galvanizes golf Twitter in a way that almost no other player does, and he's just such an appealing person. He's a great ambassador for golf, et cetera, et cetera. But he's just so compelling to watch, and he's so fun to watch. And so, yeah, I mean, we need Spieth to win more. We need Spieth to contend in majors. That would be a big deal. But as you said, it just doesn't seem like his game's quite there. So I was absolutely rooting for him to get it done. And I mean, he played beautifully for the first 10 or 11, 12 holes, but then it just went sideways. And we should definitely acknowledge the winner of the tournament, Kurt Kitayama, as Paul Azinger kept saying on TV. He had about 7 different pronunciations. Kitayama. Like he was just really going in on it. I don't know what Zinger was doing, but it generated some conversation. But Kurt Kitayama is one of those guys who, has made a great living. He's been in the top 50. He could never get it across the line. And he has a new caddy on his bag, Tim Tucker, who somehow survived the Bryson experiment. So, he's got some fortitude, and great to see him get it done, especially with that weird triple bogey on the 9th hole. I mean, I'm sure Justin Ray or someone else has researched how many tour winners have made a triple bogey in the final round in recent years, but it can't be many. So that big time performance by him. And it's always fun to see a guy win for the first time. And we use this term probably too often, life-changing, but this is a life-changing win for him. Not only a tour winner, but elevated status. He's got the exemption. He's going to be in all the majors. He's going to make it to the tour championship probably. Like this is the right year in golf to have a breakthrough, and he just had a major breakthrough.
To make a 2 on 17 is astonishing, because I mean I'm standing on the back of the tee. I'm thinking maybe my best 3-wood could reach, and to they're hitting, I don't know, a middle iron and make it a putt. That's big time golf when you're fighting that triple bogey for the rest of the day. You're going to fight it. You're in the last group. You got a caddy who knows what it's like to see a guy step up and hit big time shots in big time situations. So to a little tiny degree, you're probably trying to play for the caddy a little bit, not too much, but it is part of it. So yeah, it's neat. And, it's a great statement about full field golf with a cut. And let's just talk about the cut for a second, Alan, because that's been in the news a lot. Well, let's just start with your feeling about it, Alan. You've been to Live Golf probably more than any other reporter, except for maybe Bob Herrick. What's your feeling about the difference between tournament golf with and without a cut? And I guess we got to bring in the WGC events into that conversation.
Yeah, I love how primal the cut is. It's just such a throwback. Like you get to the course on Monday, and you're grinding and you're practicing, and you're paying your hotel and your food and all the bills and your caddy, and you can just hear the cash register ringing in the background. You make 1 or 2 mistakes and you're done. You're gone. You're down the road. You don't get $1. And of course, that's kind of changed this year with all the players getting a stipend on the PGA Tour. But still, that feeling of you're living on the edge. And okay, Rory McIlroy misses a cut. It's irritating, but it doesn't affect him. But you've got rookies, or you've got guys who are just trying to hang on. Like there used to be financial pressure to make the cut, and there's still the emotional component to it. I mean, it's the ultimate rejection. It's like you or I filing a story and the editor saying that's not good enough to print, like it's a blow to the self-esteem. It also, especially if you're a young player, you're someone trying to generate momentum, or you're trying to work on something in your game, like you're denied 2 tournament rounds. It has an effect. I mean, you miss a few cuts in a row and all of a sudden you're just not getting the reps you need. And so I like how old school the cut is. As an entertainment product, it makes no sense because, and Rory talked about this, Phil Mickelson's talked about this for years. If you're a kid in Orlando and your favorite player is, pick a guy who was down the road on Friday afternoon, and you can't get out of school, and you come on Saturday and you're so excited to see this person play, and they miss the cut and they're not there, like that's a real letdown for the fans. It makes no sense from a TV standpoint. or for the sponsors. You want your big name players guaranteed on the weekend when most people are watching golf. And if these guys miss the cut, it's a negative for the tournament in every possible way. So I understand the reasoning why they've done away with it, but I feel like something essential has kind of been lost, and it's a throwback to a different era. And in today's soft modern society, maybe the cut is anachronism, but that's why I liked it. But I also understand why it's gone, or going the way of the Edsel.
You know why Rory McIlroy and Phil Mickelson made that argument?
Tell me.
Because they're Rory McIlroy and Phil Mickelson. In other words, they're not worried. They're not worried about that kid in school. They just want to know if they have a bad Friday, they can still play on the weekend. I don't buy that argument, not in one slightest bit. There is something to be said for tradition, and I'm not saying tradition like golf and sports and life don't evolve, because of course they do. But the cut is a fundamental thing, and I mean, Kitayama could have easily, of course, missed this week's cut. Jim Herman, who's a buddy of mine, made the cut on the number at Honda. Had a great weekend. I think he top 15 for sure, made a check. He's playing for a pension. He's playing to keep status. Tiger Woods has said repeatedly that, of all the many records he has, his cut streak is the record that he's proudest of, because it means he never, ever, ever mailed it in on a Friday after a bad Thursday. The cut is tremendously democratizing. Now, Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy here, they might actually agree on something. They might say, well, the cut is years in the making, or 2 years or 1 year, or whatever in the making, because that's how we got in this position to be in this 80-man field in the first place. But it's not really true. The cut is democratizing because you have enough skill to get into this field of, let's call it 144, and even if it goes down to 125, look for Arnold's tournament or Tigers or Jacks. Everybody starts Thursday on the same level. Whether you're Kirk, or whether you're Roy McIlroy or Harris English or Patrick Cantlay. And that is a tremendous thrill. If that kid is going to miss school, if that kid's not going to make it till the weekend, he should skip school and get on his bike and forge a note. I mean, come on and man up. I don't buy any of that. That is horseshit.
Oh, you're describing a Norman Rockwell painting. I mean, come on, Michael. Like, Colin Morikawa missed the cut. He's now a Netflix star. People would have loved to have watched him on Saturday and Sunday. I mean,
Colin Morikawa is a Netflix star. Alan, you're around golf.
I'm being generous.
When does anybody ever stop you at a cocktail party and say to you, "Tell me about that Colin Morikawa"?
Well, ever. Okay, but I mean, Hideki Matsuyama, biggest star on an entire continent, he missed the cut.
That's true.
I'm sure the TV ratings plummeted in Japan for the Bay Hill Classic on Saturday and Sunday. Like, I'm just saying,
play better, dude.
Play. Okay, well, Michael's become the play better troll. I love it. I mean, yes, I'm not fully defending this new version of the PGA Tour, but I think it's a nod to market forces. And
Alan, name me a WGC event. Is that what they call it? WGC World Golf Championship. Name me one, not counting like Tiger at Firestone or some weirdness, or Adam Scott at Firestone would be a better example. Name me one you can do any play-by-play and remember anything resembling emotion by Sunday evening.
Yeah, the WCs were mostly a dud. There's no doubt. And I mean, on some level, the cut is humane, because if you're a great player and you're in bad form, do you want to have to slog it out on Saturday and Sunday when you're 20 shots back? I mean, you're going to see the give a shit meter at some of these events for these guys who are, when they play bad, they're used to having the weekend off, and but. Just to make sure all the listeners are with us here, there was a big news break early in the week at Bay Hill, because Jay Monahan had a players only meeting on Tuesday night, and they talked about what it's been a huge question. What are the designated / elevated events going to look like in 24? 23 was always going to be this transitional year. Everything was done on the fly. Came out of the Delaware secret meeting. The tour just kind of had to the center had to hold for 2023 while they sort everything out. And so they've announced for 24 that they're going to be, all these designated events are going to be no cut. The field's going to be very small, 70 to 80 players. And that's it. And it's very much like a World Golf Championship, which is a franchise that has basically died. Of course, you can't talk about this without acknowledging that this is the live golf model, small field, no cut, guaranteed money. And, Michael and I have both made the point, I think, previously that the best argument the PGA Tour had in this battle for the soul of golf was that we are pure competition and those guys are just getting paid and it's more of an exhibition. And certainly losing the cut, that eliminates a lot of that discussion. Now, week to week, the other 30 plus events on the PGA Tour are going to be full field and they're going to have a 36 hole cut. So there's still going to be that old model, but the biggest, now the most important, the most scrutinized events have definitely gone down the live road, in at least in appearance. Now, I did a podcast with Peter Malnati and other players have talked about it's different because live truly is a closed shop. These guys are guaranteed to be on there for the whole year. They're the same 48 players are going to play in every tournament. Whereas they've built into this tour model, there's going to be churn and there's going to be ways to play your way into the elevated event. So if you're, Kurt Kitayama and you get on a heater early in the year, you can play your way into the field. It's not totally closed shop. We'll have to see how that plays out in actuality. Malnati talked about thousands of computer models and looked like maybe up to a third of the field would turn over year to year. But that's an open question in how it's going to play out in real life. So there's differences, but they're subtle. And I think from an appearance standpoint, the tour took a step backwards here by getting away from its roots. And I know you agree with that, Michael.
I do. And I don't want to dismiss, because I'm not at all, the value of having the best players on the PGA Tour in the same field more often than they were in the Phil and Tiger era, because that was not working where it did work in Jack and Arnie's day. So something had to give, something had to change. And even though it's such a hokey, lousy phrase, but this elevated event, but having some big money, distinguishing between Tiger's event, Jack's event, Arnold's event, the four majors, the players, some other historic events, and somehow creating an atmosphere or a payday where it's going to be irresistible for the best players to be there. Well, that's how Greg Norman came to the United States in the first place. That's why Seve experimented with playing the United States, was the best players, the best courses, and the best paydays. But once you go down that road and then you start tinkering with the fundamental value of what golf is, which is, fair competition for everybody in the field, then I think you've gone too far. And I'm not pretending to understand it, but, with all due respect to Peter and, and the outstanding interview you did with him, if you need all these computer models to figure out what your sport is in the first place, that's not a good sign, because Michael Jordan played the same game as Bob Cousy. Minor changes, but not really. And they're both legends for all time. And if you made the basket 9.5 or made the ball smaller, you'd have a different game. These are institutions in our life, Alan. These sports that we love are institutions in our life. And they have to be tinkered with very gently. And this isn't gentle.
Well, that's well said. I mean, it speaks to a larger thing. I mean, it's funny how Phil just provided a roadmap for all this and that freighted phone call I had with him, because, one of the things he went on and on about was the imbalance in the governance on tour, in that the stars drive the whole product and they need to be catered to, but there's a vast number of quote unquote journeymen / middle class tour players, and they have all the votes. And so the stars really couldn't make any structural change. Anything that went up for a vote, the default was always going to be more playing opportunities, more trickle down for the guys who are just trying to keep their card and all that stuff. And what we've really seen here is the top players have completely hijacked the tour, and they're making all the decisions for themselves. And you can argue that's a good thing. People were tuning in to watch Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy. They probably weren't tuning in to watch Kurt Kitayama, even though he put on a hell of a show. And so it's okay. I mean, you see it in basketball where now the top players are basically de facto GMs and they're picking their own teams. that this, you see it in the college sports now, where the NIL money gives these kids so much more power. It's just an evolution where the bureaucracy is losing out to the star players. It may not be a good thing or a bad thing. It's hard. You can go back and forth on that, but it's just a thing. It's just a reality. And so, and this is not new. I mean, there's Nicklaus and Palmer, who invented the modern PGA Tour in 1968 with their rebellion. Jack came back for seconds in 1983 and tried to get Dean Beeman fired. It kind of backfired on him, but like the top players have always wanted to have more say and more control. And of course, they're going to shape things that are beneficial for them. But it just finally has happened in golf. And, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, like, they seem to be acting in the best interests of the tour. They're also acting in their self-interest. They're making a ton of money in different ways. They've created their own breakaway league that's a competitor in some ways for eyeballs with the PGA Tour, but they have the tour's blessing because they have to keep the top players happy. And so it's just an interesting moment in the sport where the power structure has shifted, and it's not about the commissioner, and it's not about the guys who are 50 to 150 on the money list. Like, it's about the top stars, and they have reshaped the whole tour in their own image. And we're going to see how it plays out. I mean, if they turn it into a bad product and the fans lose interest, then that's going to affect their own livelihoods. But in the short term, they're getting what they want.
Alan, as somebody once said, you've got the best words. But if it were 12 golfers, would you say that's too few?
12 golfers per tournament?
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Would you say that's too few? Okay.
Of course. Yeah, that'd be boring.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. How often does Justin Thomas's name just come into your mind idly over the course of the day? Or Colin Morikawa, or Matt Fitzpatrick, or Victor Hovland, or Jason Day? I don't even know who Bradley is on this leaderboard. There's a number of them. In other words, these players that you speak of as stars, they're not stars. They're just really good at golf. And the reason we're drawn to them at all is because they're beating big fields of other guys, all of whom are really good at golf. The difference between Harris English and Rory McIlroy is a thin line. And 4 times out of 10, Harris English actually can beat Rory McIlroy. And we're looking to see what's going to happen on the margins, to use a phrase that a friend of mine uses.
Yeah, that's said. I mean,
that's tournament golf, and that's the competitive impulse that made us drawn to this game in the first place. And when you really start to examine what the Phil Mickelsons and the Rory McIlroys, it's hilarious that we're talking about them in the same breath, given how different they are. It's really about making more money. And James Hahn, not James Conn. James Hahn said this beautifully in an interview with Golf Week, I think just last week. And I agree with every word that he said. And I understand the value of true star power. Even Big Jack himself didn't have star power. He had greatness power. Even now, Tiger is a special case, really. He's hard to classify. Arnold, of course, had star power. Hogan didn't have star power. He had greatness power. So we really can find out who's great by beating everybody. When Ted Williams bat 406, he beat the whole league in hitting. It wasn't just like he had one pitcher's number. He had everybody's number. And that's what made it such a monumental feat to bat over 400. So yeah. I just feel like I understand they want to get more top players in the field, but I think they're overdoing it, actually.
Well, I
have another subject for you if you want me to segue here. Go ahead, Al.
No, the floor is yours. I'm enjoying the passion. Keep going.
No, finish. No. You finish your one thought, and then I got something that no one, Marshall, Alan, you and I have a lot of experience in this. These marshals, God bless them, are the most boring conversationalists in the world. Today I talked to a marshal who is unbelievably attuned to golf and had an observation that I never considered that I'm going to lay out on you here in a minute. But you finish that one thought about competitiveness, and then we'll move on here.
The suspense is killing me. Well, all I was going to say is, ironically, the world golf ranking, which of course is under siege right now, agrees with your assessment. I mean, the whole formula has been recast to favor full fields under the premise that it's harder to beat 155 guys than it is to beat 79 or 69 guys, no matter who they are. Like, this has been baked into the math, and so that's what's ironic is these small little elevated events are going to get less world ranking points than they could have, because the world ranking has put its official stamp of approval on the concept that beating a lot of players is harder than beating a smaller number, irrespective of where they might rank in the rankings. So anyway, let's hear about this, Marshall. You have my full attention.
The marshal said to me, okay, this course is 7,400 yards, is way too short. Augusta National, 70. What is Augusta National, 75?
Yeah, a little more. Way too short.
Okay. Like a joke compared to what they play with a bladder ball and a wooden club. Any fantasy that Jack Nicklaus or anybody else might have had about the ball being rolled back, this is straight from the marshal. I wish I had the guy's name. The chance of that happening now with the emergence of Live Golf is 0.0. Because Live Golf, of course, is, golf but louder, music, shotgun, that whole thing. Also, the power game, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, everybody else who can bomb it. And if the PGA Tour or the USGA said, oh, we want a smaller ball, we want a shorter course, we want that, it would get laughed out of existence, even though it would be better for golf every way to Sunday afternoon to have shorter golf courses with shorter walks, more shot making, and all the rest. It will never happen because of the Saudis' incredible ability to use the word of the moment, disrupt. And they have been very effective. I agree with what the marshal said. I never thought about, and I agree that, Alan, tell me your take on the marshal's insight.
This is the wildest thing about this moment in golf. Mohammed bin Salman is affecting Jordan Spieth's club selection on the par fours at Bay Hill. But you're right. I mean, I said, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago that to really test the tour players, a course has to be 10,000 yards. And everyone was so mad about it, but it's just true. If you want guys to have to hit long irons into par fours and some par threes and have a few 3-shot par fives, I mean, 7,500 yards is nothing. That's driver wedge. And, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Liv would just, if the USGA did, and I don't think they're in that business, and I think it's Mike Wan's personality, but they've sort of been lumbering towards this idea of bifurcation, at least on the pro level, and Wan has signaled his support. I don't know if you'd do it unilaterally, but Live Golf would just be like, local rule, we're keeping the old equipment, and you're right. People want to watch Dustin Johnson drive it 360. They want to watch him drive it 280, and so I hadn't thought of it in those terms. I think your marshal might be a genius, and we should get him on the podcast. But yeah, that's a factor. I mean,
I'm embarrassed I didn't get his name, but that was a good insight.
Yeah, and it's even. I mean, if you really want to go have a dark, chilling thought, is the Delaware 23? Are they going to start dictating course conditions? Are they going to tell the Super at Bay Hill, you know what? It's not fun to play under these conditions. Like, water the greens, man. Cut the rough. Like, you're making us look bad. And because they hold all the cards and the whole tour is now catering to these guys, is that going to happen? I don't know. But you could see it. I mean, if they're trying to make golf more fun and more accessible and like John Rahm, certainly he's limping out of here with his tail between his legs. And it's an interesting thought. Like, how now the players have been given a taste of this power. How far are they going to go? Are they going to demand that the tour has its own set of rules? I mean, like that internal out of bounds that almost cost Kurt Kitayama this tournament. Like, maybe that next year that's going to get redone because Patrick Cantlay is going to throw a fit about it, in some meeting. Like, I don't know where this is going. It's fascinating to think when all of a sudden you let the players have too much power. We'll see how it plays out. There could be a whole trickle down, but I think that Marshall's onto something.
Yeah, I think the turning point for me in recognizing that the power structure had changed was really Oakmont. Was that 2016 when Dustin Johnson went to Oakmont, and there was everybody sided with Dustin Johnson, and nobody sided with the USGA. It was 100% in favor of Dustin Johnson. Yeah, man, you got screwed. And the USGA, rather than saying, no, actually, our job is to administer the game as best we can. And it was a confusing situation, and we had to find out what was right. Nobody cared about that. Everyone cared about, yeah, man, Dustin Johnson, you got screwed. When the fact is that ball moved under his watch.
Right. And what was interesting about that situation was that it happened in real time because players who had finished early or had missed the cut, because the cut matters, they were tweeting at the USGA as it was all playing out while Dustin was still on the 14th hole or whatever. It was, they helped shape the debate in real time. And so that was an interesting case study for sure. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I actually have a call on tomorrow or Tuesday with the tournament director of a long time event on the PGA Tour. I can say no more than that because he doesn't. I had to agree to certain rules because he doesn't want to, and he fears retribution. But he's extremely upset about the way the tour has restructured itself because his event is never going to be elevated, and he's now looking at a future of. Yeah, it's bleak.
Like even if he got 25 million, they wouldn't elevate it. You see, I think in this day and age where money absolutely rules, if this guy could come up with 25 million, it would be elevated without knowing his, I don't even know if it's a man
maybe,
or not, but I mean, this person is.
It's where the tournament falls on the schedule as it relates to other events that will be elevated. Something would have to really change. And the current sponsor is basically maxed out now. And there's no way they're going to find another $10 million. Like they were already questioning the commitment about does this pencil out for us anyway? And you double the price. Like you're right. Anything's possible. And the tour is going to try and move the elevated events around just to make people happy. Like I'm excited because Pebble's going to be elevated next year, and that has not officially been announced, but everyone locally kind of knows that to be the case, and other players has whispered about it. But that's going to be cool to finally get a great field at Pebble Beach. And they're probably going to drop the amateurs after 36 holes. They're only going to play 2 courses instead of 3. I mean, the entire charm and structure and history of that tournament is going to sort of be discarded. But it's just a new world order. If you want to get all the top players, then you got to play ball. And again, the players have the power. They don't want to play with amateurs. They don't want to have to learn a third course. Like, okay, fine, guys, whatever it takes to get you here. And so I'll be curious to talk in more detail with this tournament director. I've already interviewed a few. They're very skittish about going on the record, but they fear for the future of the tour because you now have 30 events that are going to struggle to get anybody. And Peter Malnati, I love Peter Malnati. He's a gent. I think he made some good points, but he was basically saying, well, you've got this middle tier of guys that are going to carry the tour now because they have to play a lot to try and get the elevateds. And, he cited Gary Woodland and Frankie Molinari, who I know you love, and Billy Horschel. Like those are his examples. Like this is going to be great for the tour because they're going to play John Deere. They're going to play these other events because they're not in the elevateds, but they want to get there. And if you're pinning your entire business model on Francesco Molinari and Gary Woodland and Billy Horschel, that's a tough sell for these sponsors. If you're not going to get the stars, that middle tier, I don't think is enough to really bring the sponsors back. So we're heading into a whole new era on the tour, and it's great 8 weeks a year when these guys are playing, and it's obviously been fun. I mean, you went from Kapalua to Phoenix to Riviera to Bay Hill. Like it's been bang, bang, bang. And these have all been fun events. And the question is what's going to happen in the weeks in between and how much contraction is there going to be? And Adam Scott said it to me at Kapalua. He's like, the market's going to decide. It's that simple. Like we're going to see the sponsors are going to leave. We know that. How many, what's going to happen week to week? Like those are the unknowns. He's like top guys are getting what they want, but what's that going to mean for the whole tour? It's an open question. And that's been codified now, and it's going to be fascinating to watch it play out. I'm as interested in anybody else because we don't know.
I think you're more interested than most, Alan. If you were at the Players Championship in Commissioner Jay Monahan's Tuesday press conference. You had just one chance to ask him a question in a public forum, which I know is not your thing or mine. What would you ask him?
I will say, as I've talked about this, I think people know I'm writing a book about the live versus the tour and all the subplots. And I've learned so much and I've tunneled so deep. And a lot of people have told me a lot of things that are not public knowledge. My analysis of Monahan's performance has been elevated. He did some things in the background that turned out to be quite effective. And even though his response seemed a little flat-footed, you look at the players they've held on to. I mean, I don't think if you maybe my question, actually, this might be my question for Monahan. If there was a draft and you could pick any players you want off of Live and bring them back to the tour, no harm, no foul, who would you want? And he would probably only say Dustin Johnson. I'm not sure that too many of those other guys are missed. And maybe Cam Smith because he's such a transcendent talent. But to your earlier point, he's not really a star. I mean, he could walk around at the mall here in Monterey and no one would know who he is. And he's kind of an introvert. I mean, he doesn't give you much in the interviews, and he's not dashingly handsome like an Adam Scott. I'm not sure that Monahan would want too many of those guys back in any scenario other than Dustin. And so, the tour's held on to this core of really nice guys, the Rorys, the Max Homas, the John Rahms. Like, these are gents and they're great players. And now they're getting them together. I mean, I think for all the battering that Monahan has taken and all the thoughts that he's got to go to salvage the situation, I feel like in some ways he's prevailed. I mean, he's got more buy-in from his stars than he's ever had. They're getting more money in their pocket. The tour schedule had gotten so bloated that it needed some contraction. It was sort of forced upon him, but it's going to happen and probably make the overall mechanics work better. The players are on board for more innovation in the telecast with the on-course interviews and other things. Like, the players kind of realize, all right, we're in an existential battle here and we've got to give something back. And so I'd have to think about my question to Monahan, but I like that one. Like, who would you want back? And I think it'd be a short list. And so, Monahan's weathered the storm, and the tour has been reshaped, not fully under his own making, but it's a grand experiment. We're going to see what happens, but his top players have never been happier. And the second tier tournament directors can grumble all they want, but those events were not the ones that drive the tour. They're just not. And so that's been made very plain. And there's a Darwinian component to this, but if the tour loses 6 or 8 tournaments, they still have a full schedule. There's still a lot of playing opportunities, and it's just all about the stars now. And the stars are happy, and they bought into the system, and that's just how they're plowing ahead. What would your question be?
I think that is extreme. Alan, I think that is a really insightful answer, because not only has Monahan weathered the storm, and he has, because he still has the job, but even more significant, the PGA Tour under Monahan's leadership really has, whether you like it or not, whether you're on board with every little thing that's happened or big thing that has happened or not, the PGA Tour could have caved and could have died. Not died, that would be too strong. It could look totally different, and it doesn't. And that required a lot of skill. Now, to Phil Mickelson's point, it also required a lot of money, and they had a lot of money. Who knows where these cookie jars were sitting, and what, out of the blue, they seem to have come up. What's the number, Alan? Well north of $100 million for 23, right? What is the number? Do you know?
I think it's $153 million.
So that was a big help, but they had to make a lot of a very good plays, and so they have, they're going to get through 23, and they're probably going to get through 24. Long term, the PGA Tour will just look different if it really goes down this road. I think when it's all said and done, just to speak of 3 iconic players with iconic or semi-iconic events, Nicklaus's Tournament Memorial, Tigers Riviera, the Arnold Palmer Invitational here at Bay Hill. They will look weird without full fields. And does full field have to be 144? No. The Masters sort of shows that. But there is a grandeur to the U.S. Open and the British Open that the Masters does not have because of because of the size of the field.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean,
I don't know. Monahan. I don't know if Monahan would answer your question. Who would you actually want? Even though I think Dustin Johnson would be the answer, because I think Tiger is telling people everybody we lost is somebody I don't want to hang out with except for Dustin Johnson. Charlie Howell maybe, Henrik Stenson maybe. But I'll say this about Charlie Howell's win. Yeah, it's a Charlie Howell's win, and we love Charlie Howell. We've been around Charlie Howell, and he's a great talker. And he's got a great spirit about him. He's been a terrific ambassador for what the PGA Tour represented for a long time. But his win had zero impact personally on me. But really, except for his bank account, what did that win actually matter? So then, it's just like some meaningless movie that you see on a Saturday night that you're never going to think about again.
I mean, that's well said. At the same time, it's like, I don't know. We'll see. Is Kurt Kitayama's win going to register in the sports landscape? Is it going to change professional golf? Like, I think one of the things that Live Golf made plain is that week to week, the players are businessmen. They are trying to maximize their opportunities. They're trying to win as much money as they can. And they're not as romantic about it. Like, Phil's grandfather caddied at Pebble Beach. He's won the Clambake 5 times. He goes to dinner parties all week long. He's the toast of the town. It's hard to imagine that Phil just renounced the Crosby Clambake, but I don't think he misses it. It's just like he was there. He did his thing. He always played with the CEO to try and further his endorsement deals. And now he's gone. Like, I think for Charles Howell, whether you win in Live Mayakoba or you win at the Honda Classic, I think it feels the same to him in a lot of ways. The majors are the differentiators. Maybe a couple tournaments that you have some romantic attachment. Everyone wants to win Riviera because it's a great course and because Tiger's the host. But that didn't mean much to Neiman. He was like, he didn't even come back and defend. The players, the 5th major, the crown jewel of the PGA Tour. Cam Smith's not going to be there next week. You don't care. Like, I think that we overrate the sentimentality. These guys are the definition of professional golfer is someone who plays golf for money. And that's what these guys are. And I had an agent tell me last year, it was a great quote. He said, what you have to understand about every professional golfer is they're a whore. And it was a little harsh, but that was a legit sentiment. So I think you and I.
Well, what does that make the agent? What does that make the agents?
He's the pimp, obviously. And but you and I are prone to sentiment and to romance and to poetry, but for these guys, it's a business, and I think that's what Live Golf has made obvious, and everything that's followed. You have to look through that lens, and it's kind of a drag for you and I who want to wax nostalgic, but the players are getting what they want, which is more money. That's what they want. It's not about the nostalgia for them. So, I think when you look at it in those terms, it all makes more sense, even though it's sad.
I guess we'll be looking, view the way, given what you just said, and I don't disagree with any of it. Careers will be shorter, and because you'll make big money over a short amount of time, and then you'll play your way off of the Live Tour, or you'll play your way out of the top 80 on the PGA Tour, and you'll have made enough money, and you're not going to want to go start playing, the smaller colonial type events once you had a taste of the of the elevated events. And the long Jay Haas kind of career, it'll be over, and that'll be to me, it'll be a shame too. But maybe I'm just revealing my attachment to the game that I grew up on, which I'm never going to apologize for because I love that game.
Yeah, we don't want you to apologize, and there's still a place for the surprise winners. I mean, we saw it at Bay Hill. Like, I know that you have an affection for the the golfers who have the powerful lower bodies, the John Rahms, the Sari Packs, with these tree trunk legs, and they just like power through the golf swing. And we should acknowledge that Kurt Kitayama has one of the all-time great nicknames, which is Quadzilla, because his quads are so thick. And it was fun to see him get it done, and it really did change his life. And as much as that term has been thrown around in golf, like this is the year for a break.
Well, he's got a job for 2 years. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's still room for romance, but it's become more of a business, and that's just how it is.
Okay. I'm just going to, we probably exhausted the subject for today anyway, but I just want to take exception to one thing. And I have the highest regard for Adam Scott. But when Adam Scott is describing to you this business model that will work, I don't agree with it, because I think the business model, if you're going to use that phrase for this whole thing, and isn't really a business, even in the first case, it just sort of turns out to be business, is the fact that people love to play golf and therefore love to see the people who do it best play at the highest level. And that's why Colin Morikawa, to the degree has any public position at all, is because he plays. It's not because of his hairdo or his physique or his, good with reporters. It's his golf skill, period. That's what we're drawn to. That's what drives this whole train. And just like it drives Major League Baseball, everybody's played baseball as a kid, just as it's driven the NBA basketball, skiing, and all the rest. When you've got a sport with a huge, massive participation population, and then they get to watch the best of the best do it, it's really neat. And if it's one level lower, like Korn Ferry, or one layer lower, like JC Goosey used to be, many levels lower, it's not the same thing. You want to watch the best of the best. That is really, quote, the business model. And it's not a business model at all. It's just human nature. I want to see the best do their thing.
Yeah, well said. I think we have exhausted this topic, but it's a fascinating one. And I didn't know we were going to go down this road, but that's the fun thing about these podcasts is we just go where the muse takes us. But Michael, I'm glad you're at Bay Hill. I can't wait to read your story about Jordan Spieth and all the hijinks on Sunday. And we have a big event next week, Players Championship. I mean, it's going to be weird that Cam Smith's not there. It probably won't be mentioned once on NBC or Golf Channel that the defending champion has renounced the tournament, which is supposed to be, the fifth major. But we can set aside those things. You're going to have a lot of great players on an iconic golf course, and it's going to be fun. And you and I will be tuned in.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about where we really are in the golf season, because this has been, the case now for a few years. March, April, May, June, July. I'm not saying that Players is at the same level as the U.S. Open and the British Open, because it's not. But the Players is a great event. And of course, the four majors, and then you take a month off, and then the Ryder Cup. This is the core of the golf season. We're playing and we're watching. And so if you like golf, it's a great time to be alive.
I love that. Well said, Michael. And I love the enthusiasm you bring to it, and that despite the market forces, you still are romantic at heart, and we salute you. This has been another.
And I want to make a plug for PGA Tour Entertainment. Can I make a plug here for PGA Tour Entertainment?
Please. Why?
I don't know. I'm sitting in their seat, and they haven't kicked me out, so thank you.
There you go.
I'd like to make a plug for the Classic Wooden Golf Tee by Max Homa.
I wish I loved anything
to play golf.
I wish I loved anything in this world as much as Michael loves a good golf tee. I mean, it's really charming. But anyway, thank you for listening. For those of you out there, we appreciate your fidelity, and we'll be back in your ear soon. So for Michael Bamberger, this is Alan Shipnuck. That was a fire drill, and now we're done.
I got thoughts in my head, can't get them out. Trying not to think what I'm thinking about. I got thoughts in my head, can't get them out. Trying not to think what I'm thinking about.